Greetings to the house at large. My name is Colile Mkhatshwa. I was born in a very marginalized area in Mpumalanga, Nkomazi region. So this is very subjective. I relate. I was one of those kids who had 1 meal a day. Just to introduce myself, I hold a master's in ecological sciences with direct emphasis on multiple stressors affecting the ecological state of our rivers. And I also have an opportunity to be an ambassador of a Young Women for Life movement, which is a community initiative responding to issues of HIV, human rights, and teenage pregnancy and GBV. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, the reason I did this master's in ecological science to restore our rivers is because I understand that lack of water means lack of food. I'm from Gobotsi, our rivers are dry. Until now, they are dry. My studies was in KZN. What about Mkoboti, where I grew up, where I was born? I'm thinking now, as he was speaking, Mr. Harrington Chuma, I could hear how they are responding to these issues of hunger. But the big question is, are they sustainable? Are they sustainable? Because now when we keep on giving out these emergency aids, how about next year? We need to agree now that we are 3 years before 2030 and we're not even in track with any of our sustainable goals. Not to mention the first and the second one, which is very important, but we have not even attained it. Are we still going to attain it in 2030? The answer is no. Food security speaks to availability, access, and utilization. But if you are not including us, the marginalized, if we keep on giving out funds to at a national level, what about us at a local level? We are here. There is very high unemployment rate. I relate to these issues. I know I am experiencing this and I have empirical evidence. I'm currently doing a study which is rethinking your drinking, which means that we are encouraging the community of Matulu to stop drinking or drink responsibly. And the response I got there is that many people are drinking alcohol because they want to numb their harsh realities. And I'm talking about demographic groups of age 25 to 60 years, people who are supposed to be parents, people who are supposed to be feeding the kid, but because they are unemployed, there's no water, there's nothing. What are we doing? Can we please try to produce a more holistic approach? For my sake, for the community of Ngoboti, for the community of Matsulu, we need a more holistic approach. We need to interconnect these issues, because if there's climate change issues, no food. If there is environmental degradation, no food. Please, can you please adopt a more holistic approach? Thank you so much.
Ladies, thank you so much for talking to us right here on SACBC. It's been a very interesting and thought-provoking workshop, conference meeting, symposium rather, and you've highlighted many topics that have to do with eradicating poverty, for example, the issues with regards to the debt that so many African countries have. We also dealt with today, especially hunger, and we're looking at food programs for children, school-going children. We're looking at the different challenges that affect, for example, the girl child. And your intervention was quite powerful, especially when you spoke about your reality, where you come from. What would you like to say to those watching you right now with regards to a way forward? How do we overcome these obstacles? As you said in your intervention, it's not about just talking, but it's also important to go to the ground and see what's actually happening. I think we'll start with you.
Okay. Personally, I'd like to advocate for an inclusive and holistic approach when we try to solve these problems. We need to know that in the case of poverty, when someone is hungry, obviously they'll be vulnerable, especially our young girls. As I advocate for young women, they'll be vulnerable, and then they'll now date for money, which now also causes issues like HIV and AIDS. So you see that these problems are interconnected, they are interlinked. Therefore, when we solve them, we need to solve them in that approach, because all these years we've been using this linear approach, addressing climate change just as climate change, not necessarily looking at what the impact does to personal perspective or ground issues like this HIV and poverty I'm talking about.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. My name is Boitumelo Maila. I was born in Limpopo, Skukune, in a very rural area called but I stay in Mpumalanga. I work for the Department of Health at Lydenburg. My credentials are long, but yeah, I won't dwell much there. I also have an NGO, it's called First Lady Foundation. It does basically everything. So, yes. And the most important part that speaks to me is the fact that I was born in a royal family. And you know, being born in a royal family means that your home becomes a home for everyone. When there's no meals for families in the community, you need to share with the community what you have. I think this topic speaks to me closely because I got to experience how it feels to eat from the bins as well. So with that said, I think the first point of departure in this topic is us understanding or making the government understand that school meals are not a favor to our school kids. They're actually a human right. So if we depart from that point and making the government understand, then I think we would be going somewhere as well. And I'm also adding on what Colile was saying. And then secondly, I think we need to work with what we have at the moment. Because we cannot say we are planning for future. What happens now while we are planning for future? And another thing that I think our government needs to think about is that really breaks my heart is the fact that our leaders don't understand what happens, especially in rural areas. For you to understand something, you need to be experiencing it. So if you don't get the feel of what happens in rural areas, you'll never understand. No matter how much we try to explain to you, you'll never get to experience it. I think they need to be at a point where they come to rural areas to see how much our kids are suffering, simply because their kids are not in those schools. They have all the meals that they have in the whole world. So I think we also need to conscientize the government to do away with the tenderization of food schemes, because if we do away with tenders, I think we'll be moving in the right direction. For example, if the tenderpreneurs are not paid, our kids don't get food in schools. We need to face the reality that there's corruption in these tenders. If we do away with tenders, then we'll be moving into the right direction. Maybe we can source food from local farmers. We can invest in school gardens. We can invest in green kitchens as well in the schools. So if we do that, maybe that could help us also in job creation, and the money will circulate in the communities. So my point of emphasis is that the government should do away with the tenderization of food schemes. Thank you.
Okay, just to add on what she was saying, the one thing that I really stood out for me was the fact that we also need to change our mindset as Africans. I think most of us, we rely more on being spoon-fed instead of doing the actual groundwork. So the one thing that really stood out for me was the fact that we really need to change our mindset. And what really broke out my heart, but it is true, was the fact that in this feeding scheme programs, when the government provides food in some of the schools, we are the ones as parents that would steal the food, not thinking that tomorrow our kids are the ones that are going to be suffering. And also another thing that I want to challenge our government leaders is to deal with corruption, because it is us that are suffering at the ground level. When you are not at the ground level, you don't get to see what happens there. So I think as South Africans, we must really change our mindset and approach this holistically and put ourselves in the shoes of people that really need this food.
Thank you.